in celebration of us coming together after this long period, I thought that I would begin by entertaining you with a story. One of my favorite stories, and most of you know it. It's the Hobbit. We all know the Hobbit, right? And we all know what hobbits are, but maybe some don't, so I'll explain to you. Hobbits are little wee people who live in the Shire in Middle Earth. And in the Shire, the hobbits have no adventures at all. They're just happy to maintain their gardens, especially Bilbo Baggins, who was sort of the mayor of the place, and he had the nicest hobbit hole. Yes, they lived in holes in the ground, but his is by far the nicest. Well, one day, Gandalf the wizard shows up, and a whole bunch of dwarves showed up, and the dwarves are on an adventure to get back their gold from the dragon at the mountain of the dwarves. And somehow, Bilbo got caught into it. You see, he was a Baggins of Baggins, but he also had a mother who was a Took, and the Tooks were those who lived outside the Shire, and they all loved adventure. But he preferred to stay in the Shire, but he got caught up in this adventure. And Gandalf convinced the dwarves that Bilbo was a burglar and that he could steal the treasure back. And Bilbo agreed to it. And this is what he said: "Now you are in for it at last. They are at the Mount. Bilbo Baggins," he said to himself, "you went and put your foot right in it that night of the party, and now you have got to pull it out and pay for it. Dear me, what a fool I was and am," said the least Tookish part of him. "I have absolutely no use for dragon-guarded treasures, and the whole lot could stay here forever. If only I could wake up and find this beastly tunnel was my own front hall at home." He did not wake up, of course, but went still on and on till all sign of the door behind it faded away. He was altogether alone. Soon he thought it was beginning to feel warm. "Is that a kind of glow I seem to see coming right ahead down there?" he thought. It was. As he went forward, it grew and grew till there was no doubt about it. It was a red light steadily getting redder and redder. Also, it was now undoubtedly hot in the tunnel. Wisp of vapor floated up and past him, and he began to sweat. A sound, too, began to throb in his ears, a sort of bubbling, like the noise of a large pot galloping on the fire, mixed with a rumble as of a gigantic tomcat purring. This grew to the unmistakable gurgling noise of some vast animal snoring in its sleep down there in the red glow in front of him. It was at this point that Bilbo stopped. Going on from there was the bravest thing he ever did. The tremendous things that happened afterwards were as nothing compared to it. He fought the real battle in the tunnel alone before he ever saw the vast danger that lay in wait. At any rate, after a short halt, go on he did. And you can picture him coming to the end of the tunnel, an opening of much the same size and shape as the door above. Through it peeps the hobbit's little head. Before him lies the great bottommost cellar or dungeon hall of the ancient dwarves right at the mountain's root. It is almost dark, so that its vastness can only be dimly guessed. But rising from the near side of the rocky floor, there was a great glow. The glow of Smaug the dragon. I like this line here. He fought the real battle in the tunnel alone before he ever saw the vast danger that lay in wait. I would like to talk with you today about courage, as demonstrated by Bilbo here. There are two types of courage. There's natural courage and there's supernatural courage. I have to admit before you all today, confess, I have no natural courage. That was demonstrated to me when I went on a trip to France one summer when I was in college. And we were of a group there that's helping out in this chateau. And one Friday night, there was reported a whole bunch of drunken Frenchmen were in the woods. And one of the girls of our group said, well, John, you go out there and you deal with it. And I said, no. And she looked at me as if I was a coward. And I was. No, even to this day, I don't feel like I have very much natural courage. But natural courage only goes so far. I heard that Napoleon himself was scared of mice. Now, I can't imagine him in his office talking with his generals and a mouse comes by and he jumps on a chair and say, eek. I don't see him doing that, but evidently he was afraid of mice. So natural courage only goes so far. There's always a limit to it. But supernatural courage is something that's completely different because it wells up in your soul. It's God calling something out of you, much like he called out of Bilbo to face his dragons. And dear brothers and sisters, we all have our dragons. Now we have two illustrations of this in the gospel today. We have a courageous woman. This courageous woman had a condition, an issue of blood, which for 12 years barred her from ever going to the synagogue or to the temple to worship, because she was considered unclean by the law. As a matter of fact, no one really should even touch her. It was almost like being a leper. And her energy is ebbing away. The doctors couldn't help her. And so she was desperate. Now, she thought to herself, Jesus is here. I can't touch him because I'm unclean. I can't make the rabbi unclean. And if I got caught, I'd be in real trouble. But she thought, maybe just if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I could be made well. So she elbows her way through the crowd. And she gets just close enough to touch. And the energy from Jesus healed her. And my guess is she was about ready to turn around and go out. He said, who touched me? Of course, the disciples said, Jesus, everybody's crowding around you. How do I know? You know, someone touched me. He wanted to call this woman out because he wanted to display to everyone her courage. Dear brothers and sisters, we need courage, especially as we're coming out of this COVID situation. It still lingers, but we want to look forward. And I think we have to see ourselves as this woman. We are ill. All of us are ill because sin is a sickness. It's an illness. And it's a very subtle one in a lot of ways because we kind of look at ourselves as good people, but the truth of the matter is we fall short of the glory of God. And we're ill. And sometimes our illness keeps us away from Jesus. That he seems so remote from me, so far away. And it takes the courage of this woman to elbow our way to Jesus and say, Jesus, save me. Jesus, heal me. Jesus, break into my life and make it holy, make it exciting, make it thrilling, because that's what holiness is all about. Yes, we are that woman. Every one of us. Now, there's a second illustration of courage, and that's with Jesus. See, he's going to Jairus' house, and he gets there, and they say, "Don't bother the rabbi, she's dead." And so everybody is weeping and wailing. You know how it is in the Middle East. They have professional, even mourners. The whole thing must have been very sad. And it is sad, because death is sad. And Jesus tells them, you know, she's not dead, she's asleep. And that is met with a chorus of mockery. Oh, Jesus, how can you be so awful to say something like that in the face of this? And Jesus was met with a wall of unbelief, a wall of suffering, a wall of sorrow, a wall of mockery. And he breaks through it, and he says, Talitha kum, rise up, young one. Dear brothers and sisters, we have to be just like Jesus. We have to have the courage to break through the walls of everyone that lives around us. There are people out there in our workplaces, people in our neighborhood, people at school, people all over the place who are in deep need. And they may cover it all with mockery of everything that's good and it's true and it's right. But we have to break through with faith into their lives, because behind it is weeping, weeping, as the people were weeping for this little girl. Again, we need courage to move on now. We have to have courage. There's no reason why this church can't have 3,000 people here. And it's not about numbers. It's not about numbers. It's about souls. Our neighborhoods are growing, and the church has been dwindling. And we all have to see ourselves as missionary disciples. We have to come into our calling, and it takes courage. And that, dear brothers and sisters, is what Jesus is challenging us with today.